All right, Nick, let's talk about the Colorado Buffs. Everyone has heard of this team by now. They've come out, they shocked the world. They didn't shock us because we've been pretty high on them all season, but they come out, they beat TCU, a team that was in the national championship last year, and now the national media is kind of giving them the credit they are due, especially one key player on this team that I think a really big pundit has come out and said a lot of great things about.
Yeah, Miles, this is more exciting news for Colorado and everything Coach Prime has done. Look, this is a great time to be a Buffs fan. We love talking Colorado. And look, I'm coming to you from my in-laws' office. That tells you how exciting this program is. Pulling out all the stops to talk Buffs football, which leads me directly into my question today for you Buffs fans to answer in the comment section below. Obviously, rivalry matchup this weekend against Nebraska. Give us your prediction for the final score in the comment section below. Now's your chance to show how smart you are. Put it in the comments what you think the final score will be. Brian, Miles, let me throw it back over to you now. What's the latest news out of Colorado?
Yeah, Nick, this game coming up might be one of the most exciting games of the weekend. Big-time rivalry matchup, Colorado versus Nebraska. But there's one key person we need to look at in this game, and that is Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback from Colorado, Coach Prime's son, that came out and shocked the world that he is truly the real deal at quarterback. He can go in Power 5 football. He can be a great quarterback anywhere. And his name should be potentially on Heisman Watch alert because of how good he has been. Another pundit other than us has also picked up Shedeur Sanders, and that's none other than former Heisman winning quarterback Steve Spurrier has said a lot of great things about Colorado, a lot of great things about Shedeur. Let's get into the article. We can talk about it afterwards, though, Nick. This is from over on Sports Illustrated. It says, appearing on the Paul Feinbaum show, Spurrier revealed that he is all aboard the Coach Prime hype train and is enamored with what Deion Sanders and his brand new roster has already accomplished at Colorado. The former Heisman-winning QB was also impressed by Shedeur Sanders' record-breaking performance in his Colorado debut. Spurrier said, his son, Shedeur, he is a good player. He throws a catchable ball, and he threw for 510 yards, setting all kinds of records in his first FBS game. Now, Nick, this just shows that everybody at first kind of wasn't as high on Colorado. They're like, well, they could be this, they could be that. You never know what's going to happen. But now that they've come out, now that they've done what they needed to do to show the world they're the real deal, people are picking up Shedeur, and this is a guy, Steve Spurrier, he knows the quarterback position. So I think his word carries a lot of weight. He seemed a little bit enamored with Shedeur. He goes on an interview just talking about his wife, with him and his wife watching the game, how he really was started to pull for Colorado. He loves this program and what they have done. He loves what Coach Prime has done, but he really likes Shedeur as well. And I think this is the kind of respect that Shedeur Sanders deserves, Nick. What do you think about Spurrier's comments, and what do you think about the program of Colorado as a whole going forward with this national media attention finally?
Yeah, so I think it's one of probably the biggest endorsement you've seen yet out of Colorado, Coach Prime, or of course Sanders, who's a phenomenal quarterback. Obviously did well at Jackson State, but what he did against TCU was absolutely incredible. I don't care how many starters TCU lost to the NFL draft. You throw 500 yards against an FBS team, that's an incredible accomplishment. But Spurrier is, and always will be a guy, he calls it as he sees it. He was famously very critical. He would kind of mock Peyton Manning a little bit when they were competing against each other when Spurrier was the head coach of the Florida Gators and Peyton Manning was playing for the Tennessee Volunteers in the late 1990s. He's a guy who calls it as he sees it, and he knows the quarterback position, especially at the collegiate level, probably better than anybody. And for him to come out and say very positive things about Sanders is obviously a massive endorsement. Because again, Spurrier is a guy who sits there and says, listen, if I don't think he's very good, I'll say it. If I think he's very good, I'll say that too. And again, we live in an era where a lot of the hype around quarterbacks is kind of preordained by the big media, the ESPNs, where everyone wants to talk about Caleb Williams all the time. And like we talk about Caleb Williams, he's a phenomenal player, or Drake May or somebody like that. But when you have people like Spurrier come out and really throw their support and encouragement behind Sanders, it really builds a lot of momentum, and it kind of just shows what Colorado is doing. We talked about it in our previous Colorado video, how they just do things differently. Obviously, Colorado is starting to get legacy media attention now, but I guarantee you, all the people that know football, the Steve Spurriers of the world, obviously we're not even close to Spurrier's league, but people like us, people like Buffs fans who have been following this train this whole time, there's a lot of grassroots movement behind Sanders and how good he's going to be and continue to be. And I would not be surprised at all after a few short weeks if we find this kid in the Heisman conversation. Because what we saw against TCU, I went back and watched some of the film a little bit. this was not just a guy who had great athletic skills. It's not just a guy who was throwing to wide open receivers. This was a guy, wasn't just a guy who just threw a couple screens that went off. There was some of that, but it wasn't completely it. He looked like an elite level experienced quarterback. It looked like this was his 50th FBS start, not his first. This is obviously Coach Prime has done a phenomenal job bringing in the recruits and the transfers and all that. But I think the most important cog in this entire machine, I know Travis Hunter's incredible. He's a great player. I think is Sanders. What he did against TCU, and I think what he will continue to do against Nebraska and beyond will be absolutely incredible. He's a special player behind center right now.
Yeah, Nick, and I think going into this weekend, this will be the big one for Sanders to come out. If he can light up Nebraska, a team that against Minnesota, they lose a tough one, but Minnesota only scored 13 points on Nebraska. Is this defense in Nebraska the real deal? Or does Shedeur Sanders come out and light this thing up? Does he continue the offensive firepower that Colorado has been showing? I think this will be huge for them because they're still, by some accounts, being disrespected going up against Nebraska. You look on ESPN, other sites, the matchup predictor has Nebraska the 58.8% favorite to Colorado's 41.2%. So I think coming into this weekend, they can come out and just show for real that this team goes out against, a blue blood, traditional powerhouse program, Nebraska, not so much as of late, but in, recent history, Nebraska had been a very, very good team. If they can come out, if they can beat this Matt Rule-led Nebraska team, if Shedeur can show out, I think this solidifies it, and anyone who is still left doubting that Shedeur Sanders and the Colorado Buffs are for real.